back. So why don't we get kicked off with this morning's show? So good morning and welcome to another episode of the Places We'll Go show. Another fine morning, perhaps somewhere in the world, and yet another incredible guest here for you. Now, I must admit that Michelle has marketing might like few we've interviewed on this show. She's someone who's super inspirational in what she's achieved in her career, from working for some of the world's best brands to scaling others, and even having gone through a sale and integration process a number of years ago. Now, let me give you just a little bit of a glimpse into Michelle's professional life. So she spent 30 years as a marketer, working for brands such as Colgate-Palmolive and PepsiCo, and then joining Brand Learning pretty much during the early days. And that's an organization that really kind of went to the forefront to help upskill organizations around the world with their marketing and performance. She scaled Brand Learning to really incredible heights, so much so that Accenture bought them out in 2017. Now, since then, Michelle has actually been wearing two hats. The first is she is the Chief Client Officer of Accenture Interactive, and she's also the co-CEO of Brand Learning. Now, those are just two massive jobs in their own right, and I really genuinely have no idea how she actually packs those in. Of course, we're going to find out. But she really has one of the best reputations in our industry. But actually, what really, for me, is really striking is just how down to earth and what a great, big, kind heart she does have. Now, before we get started, I have to admit that I did ask one of your colleagues what they thought of you. So I asked Nina Holloway to describe you. And so this is what she said. So Michelle is a work hard, play hard kind of girl. While super professional, she takes her responsibilities at work really seriously. Her Irish heritage means that she certainly knows how to party and have fun too. In fact, fun is one of her values, which we all love. So she's the queen of party games. God, party. I'm going to have to figure this out here. So look, it's just with a huge, open arms, warm welcome to you, Michelle, this morning. Really excited about this show and looking forward to hearing and kind of dissecting a little bit about your journey and what makes you tick. So welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Richie and Mark, for having me on. It's a privilege to be with you here today. So very excited about the conversation we're going to have.
Yeah, brilliant to have you on, Michelle. I learned a little bit there from Nina, but no, your reputation goes beyond you, or it speaks for itself. I'm going to ask a different first question, just on the basis of what Richie said, which is work hard, play hard, knows how to have fun, knows the right party games. So, how through the pandemic period, how have you made sure you're still having fun in what you're doing?
Yeah, look, I think it's been a challenging 2 years for everybody, right? But I think one of the things for me is a reflection is that looking after yourself is so important through all of this, kind of first and foremost, because if you're not on tip-top form, a good mother, a good wife, a good leader, a good peer, then it's going to be really pretty tough for everybody. So as you say, fun is one of my core values. And what have I done to have lots of fun? Well, at home, we've played loads of games. We're a games household, whether it's cards or whether it's actually with our friends online. Thank God for Zoom and thank God for technology, because we've played all sorts of quizzes alongside, I suppose, everybody else, but tried to get really inventive about what we do. But just try and look at the positives and things, right? It's been really tough, but actually I've spent much more time with my kids. 22 and 20 were both home from uni during the pandemic, and so that was great fun. Got to spend loads more time with them. From a work point of view, we've done some crazy things. We dress up, we bake cakes, we do whatever we kind of want to do, which makes people happy and brings moments of joy in what's been pretty tough. So it's having that sort of enjoyment aspect in there.
Amazing. Are you going to dress up for Halloween?
Oh, possibly. I have the biggest box of outfits upstairs, actually. So may well do. Saturday night we're in London, so I will wear orange though. So there you go. If you see me walking around in bright orange, that's me dressing up.
Hey, there you go. Look, I think what in your personality is always to look at the positive sides. But there's absolutely no doubt that in the last 2 years, particularly working agency side and working with some of the largest clients in the world. I'm sure it's come with a few stresses and strains. Let's not sugarcoat things here.
Yeah.
So how were able to cope with that? And more so, how were you able to motivate your team to be able to cope with that in a really new working environment?
Yeah, I think, again, I come back to yourself first, because if you haven't renewed your energy and you're not on great form and you're not showing up in the right way, then it all kind of falls to pieces, really, because kind of this concept of the shadow of the leader, right? So I've had to spend a lot of time with my own energy, and I know when I'm kind of getting tired or kind of losing that pace, losing that excitement. And that's when I go out for a run. I will go and walk the dog. I will go out into nature, etc. But I've really been trying to encourage that with the team as well. So really encouraging the team. If you're feeling kind of a bit kind of low or whatever, just get out, get off these screens, because they are energy sappers, and just get out into nature, do what just helps you re-energize. So that's
Michelle, I've got a top tip for you here. So when they're doing that, running, walking, energizing, just get them to listen to the show.
Well, there you go. I will post this out. Job done. Absolutely. Yeah. So it's been a big focus for me and kind of the leadership team, which is actually how do we make sure that our people are safe, secure, and feeling confident in what they're doing, because otherwise they just can't perform. So a lot of focus as a business on that, and personally.
Yeah, wise words. So, Michelle, let's go all the way back to the beginning, shall we? So let's start by finding out how you came to be in marketing back in the day. What was your journey into the industry?
Well, I always loved my jobs, right? I worked in a bar for when I was really young, and then I worked at M&S on the tills. And then when I was at uni, I had a summer job, and it was cold calling, selling second-hand cars, right? Oh my God, that was tough. It was just so tough, and I had to dig really deep on that. I decided that wasn't for me, by the way. I wasn't going to be a car salesperson. Then I was really lucky. I got an internship at Glaxo, which was very local to me. So I grew up in Harrow. And they were in Greenford, and I had a summer working in their marketing department, and it was just eye-opening, and I just absolutely loved it. And so that was my kind of second year, but then I went back in the third year, and it was like, oh my goodness, the milk round. I just went hell for leather in terms of applying for marketing roles. I got offered 3 through that, and shows how deep and meaningful I am. I chose Colgate, partly because I love the fast movingness of consumer goods, but also because it was based on Oxford Street, and I just thought that would be a really fun place to be, versus the others. One was in Slough, which was probably not quite so exciting, but yeah. So that's how I ended up at Colgate, and how I ended up in marketing. And honestly, 30 years on, I haven't looked back.
What was the Slough option? Just to say, was that the Mars scheme? That was the
It may have been a chocolate. It was yeah.
Yes, there you go.
Right.
That's the route I took. Anyway, back to you, Richard. Yeah.
No, not at all. I was just going to say
it was an interesting one, actually, because they said to me, if we offered you the job, would you take it? And I actually said no, I wouldn't. So it was that was an interesting one. So yeah.
Amazing. What a fortunate position to be in there, to actually have someone say that to you. But it's funny, Michelle, you and me have a little bit more in common, because I started my career out in the shop floor too. Must have been not selling secondhand cars, but selling mobile phones. And I actually still to this day think it was one of the best jobs in the world. Really engaging with customers, understanding their needs, fun team environments. And I think really set me up in really good stead for what came in marketing, because we're just doing it at a different level, really. Yeah. But tell me, what do you love about marketing that really keeps you here 30 years on?
Oh my goodness, it's been such a huge journey in marketing. And I think when I started in marketing, it was all about sort of understanding consumers and trends and sort of the craft of being an expert in marketing. I think I cut my teeth at Colgate, and then I cut my teeth at Pepsi, and I was really lucky to have lived and worked abroad for 5 of those years with Colgate in Brussels, in Rome, in New York. I mean, it was fantastic. And then with Pepsi, I was Walker's marketing director, and that was 8 million bags of crisps a day. It was so exciting. Gary Lineker, it was high energy, high octane. Then when I went into brand learning, it was more around really growing a business and actually scaling up and helping our clients transform. And that went from being a UK business really into a global business. And so I then kind of got this whole different perspective on, I've helped set up the US office, the Singapore office, and the consumers are very different, and the locations and kind of challenges are so different. So that was a completely different set of challenges. And I suppose I learned from, instead of being a client, I ended up being a consultant. So I had to learn how to be a consultant. So not jumping to the solutions all the time, but actually working with our clients to actually go on a journey and understand and really help them solve their issues rather than sort of necessarily jumping in on the solutions with them. So that was a big learning journey for me. And then actually being bought by Accenture, which was so exciting for us because we knew we got to a certain scale as brand learning, and we knew we needed a partner to go to the next stage. And so that was finding a partner who would complement what we had. So we had lots of amazing people who had all been client side, or pretty much all client side like me, and been on a kind of that journey, but wanted to be consultants. But then in terms of Accenture, it was really about what they were bringing was the scale, the technology, the data and analytics, and that's sort of where we had all the strategy. They were really massively into that sort of how to actually take it and scale it and go to the next level. So I've been on the most amazing learning journey for the last 30 years, and I just haven't stopped, and I'm loving it. And I'm working on so many different clients and so many different challenges, which are taking me so out of my comfort zone every day. So that's why I'm still doing what I'm doing.
It's lovely to hear. We've had a few guests on the show who've said the same thing, people talking about loving their job, because I think that's a great thing to be able to do because we put so much time and effort in. So Michelle, you've seen a lot of the world and you've had international placements. I just wanted to ask about what you think you learned from a stint abroad, because many people will be considering that option. What was the key benefits from your point of view?
I think I found myself. I think I'd had a pretty easy life, very happy family upbringing, kind of decent schools, etc., and done pretty well. But actually, so I was 25 when I went. I was asked by an amazing man, a guy called Seamus McBride, who was my boss at Colgate, to go and work in Brussels in the European head office. I had been part of launching a new mouth rinse into the UK, and they wanted to roll it out across Europe. So my territory was Europe, Middle East, and Africa. And honestly, it was just incredible because, firstly, at a personal level, I had to. It was French and Flemish in terms of languages spoken. I think that's right. Then, so I had to cope in a country which they spoke a lot of English, but also people also spoke lots of different languages. But I had to really make new friends. I had to navigate for myself, new cultures. And sometimes it wasn't the most exciting place. A lot of people left Brussels at the weekend and stuff like that. And so there was a lot of kind of self-discovery going on. But I think the other thing is the territory was Europe, Middle East, and Africa. It was 17 markets. And I really didn't have anyone working for me. And it was all about learning about influence and people skills and kind of getting to common grounds on kind of how to take things forward. Because we were trying to work at a European level. So it was, I mean, it taught me a completely different set of skills versus just having a sort of pure line management. And honestly, I didn't look back. It's been the most exciting journey. and I feel much more worldly wise. And I also took a risk, right? Often when I look at people's CVs, I actually look and see if people have done something a bit different, have taken themselves out of their comfort zone, because it shows a sort of a characteristic, a curiosity and excitement within them. So honestly, I learned so much, and I went from there to Rome, best placement in the world. I mean, I've still got a great gang of mates from Colgate days, and they all help me through, because I'm terrible at languages, and so when I was presenting to the sales force, it was just amazing at helping me get through. And then I went to New York actually, and that was a pretty fun gig as well. So yeah, but all very different, and having to start again each time, personally and then professionally, just soaking everything in, soaking up so much learning.
Michelle, that's really great to hear, just that international context and how many lessons you can learn by just getting yourself out of your comfort zone and going to places a little less familiar to you. In fact, we've got some comments coming through. So Sheila Hopper, I dismiss Slough too for Holborn. So there we are. You're not wrong in making life career decision making based on location. There you go, guys.
It's terrible,
Smart moves.
I feel very shallow. Very shallow. But yeah.
Not at all. Not at all. And we got Kerry. So love the message. Get off your devices and out into nature. I agree. It's grounds to clear your head. So there we go. Having morning coffees here, listening to the show. So look, I want to unpick a little bit. And you talked about the role of risk, and actually that you look out for risk when trying to choose teams and things like that. But I want to maybe dig a bit deeper into the personal risks that you think you have taken, which has held you in good stead. Maybe some lessons along the way as a consequence.
Ooh, goodness me. So I think that first one about going abroad, leaving everything I had behind when I was 25, I was single, and heading off abroad. I think that was a big risk, and tough, honestly, really. I mean, it all sounds very lovely. I always have this thing that I love this quote, that life is lived forward and understood backwards. I love that, because people say to me, oh my God, how did you plan out your career, etc. Well, I didn't really. I mean, I had a few North Stars there, but I don't know, you sometimes you go with it. So that was a big risk for me going abroad. I think I then left corporate life. I came out of PepsiCo, I halved my salary. I went into a startup. Why did I do that? It was because Maury McEwen, who I'd worked with at Pepsi, she and I just had my second child, actually. I just had Izzy, who's now 20. And we had lunch together, and she said, look, thinking of setting up this business, what do you think? She was at Walker's with me. And it sounded really exciting. And also I had 2 children. I wanted to make sure that I was part of their life as well. And so that was a huge risk. But God, I wouldn't look back on that one either. And then Accenture. I mean, I think we obviously did a lot of due diligence on them. They did a lot of due diligence on us. But oh boy, has that been a great move for us and for me. Yeah. So I think my encouragement around risk taking is, if you're comfortable, then you're cruising, right? Do look at taking risks and try different things. You will learn and grow as a person so much.
Life is lived forward and understood backwards. That's a great quote. So let's turn our attention to marketing for a little moment. And I'd just love to get your perspective. You have a great vantage point. Marketing in good health, as in, doing the things it should be doing within businesses, or struggling a bit on the back foot in some cases. Probably a mix, but where's marketing at these days?
Oh, I think that's a great question. Look, personally, I think marketing has never been needed as much as it is today. Okay, so I think the consumers and customers are more demanding than they've ever been, right? And so this sort of on-demand sort of generation, I think, is really prevalent. So I think we've got huge consumer demands. We've got huge changes in what consumers are wanting and needing. So let's take retail, for example. Whereas before it would have been a lot around sort of quality and price. I mean, who would have thought safety and hygiene is now so important and a table stake in retail, particularly in grocery. So I think marketeers having a really strong pulse on consumer behaviour, customer behaviour, insights, trends, and there's just this plethora of data, there's this plethora of technology, there's this plethora of channels, and actually marketeers are the best place to really navigate this. So I think marketeers, their time is absolutely now more than ever before, and that drive for sort of growth, if that's the type of business you're in, but the need to understand how to bring in sustainability, climate change, what's happening with metaverse. I mean, it's just like mind-blowing, but as marketeers, we've kind of got to understand that and be on top of it and have an opinion.
What an exciting time to be in our world. It really is. It really is. And I mean, my mind is blown every day. I'm in a really fortunate position that I get to listen to loads of different types of speakers as we help to upskill other marketers. And it really is. It's just an incredible, incredible spot. But I want to pick up on one aspect here, Michelle. So you wrote a lovely article on LinkedIn recently, and you talked about the role of the Da Vinci marketer. And I would love for you to elaborate on what you categorize as a Da Vinci marketer.
Oh, okay. So it's an interesting concept, isn't it? The Da Vinci marketer versus the Da Vinci marketing team as well. So I think the whole art and science of marketing, it's where we started in marketing, and actually I think it's sort of where we are now, and that arts and science is just even more so than ever. So I think obviously there's the side of marketing which is all about the art and the understanding consumers and understanding kind of the emotional kind of resonance with consumers, the creativity and how to make those bonds. But the science piece has become so much more important, I think, now. And I think that's really driven because there is just so much data out there. There is so much technology available. There are so many sort of routes to market and ways to engage with consumers. So I think it really blending those two now together in terms of sort of how do you bring the humanity, how do you bring the technology together through with the art and science is absolutely critical if people are going to be successful. And actually, it's quite interesting. We've been doing quite a lot of research now around. As Accenture, we do loads of research. We've just published something called Decluttering Marketing, and it's really looking at kind of who's doing well in marketing and kind of globally. And we have three categories: thrivers, strivers, and survivors. And the thrivers are those people who are particularly embracing technology and particularly embracing AI, for example, artificial intelligence. And that's really there's so much going on for marketers. And actually, how do you declutter what they're doing? Because they can't do everything and they've got to have much more focus. And actually, how can AI help you and take away some of those mundane tasks that we as marketers have been doing for years, and actually they're not value add, and they're taking up a lot of time. So I think the blending of the art and science, both as it goes out to the consumer customer, but also for us internally, is absolutely vital. But sorry, I'm going to just add one thing to that, is I don't think you can do it all personally. I think you need a really amazing team with which to work, which has a blend of skills.
That's such a good tail to that answer, because of course any leader, whether they're a marketing leader or wherever, you're only as good as your team. So nice round off there. You mentioned AI, Michelle. So a lot of talk, a lot of hype maybe, but it links very nicely to a question that Matt's asked. Thank you, Matt. Matt's asked a quite straightforward question, but is it really? I'm not sure. What do you feel are the things that will disrupt the industry in the next 3 years? You mentioned AI, but what else?
Oh, I think that's amazing. The one that, okay, so I think sustainability and climate change. So I think the whole COP26 piece going on at the moment, I think is something that we all have to wake up to and kind of get on board as brands, and genuinely live and believe, because, you know, I think, again, lots of the research we're looking at is people are really voting with their feet in terms of consumers and customers voting with their feet in terms of the purpose that brands have. And if you are promising something, you absolutely have to deliver on it as a first table stake. And the second one is consumers and a lot of younger generation particularly are digging deeper into what brands do, say, and how they act. So I think climate sustainability is going to be absolutely vital. I also think the metaverse, and I don't know how much you guys, and I'm no expert on this, right? I'm really new to it. But even the fact that Facebook have just renamed themselves as of yesterday, Meta, as the holding company, like Google is Alphabet. They just unveiled Meta. We could be seeing some very different things happening into the future. So I think that's another one I want to dig much more into personally. So just a couple there, but honestly, there's data is another really huge one, and actually getting to grips with how you manage your different data sources and looking for different influences on your consumers that you can be analysing and using to market to them better.
Some real mega trends and things for us to kind of consider. And you're absolutely right. The whole concept of the metaverse is really an interesting one, and one that we're getting to grips with ourselves at the School of Marketing at the moment. So it's cool. It's a cool concept coming through. But you talked a little bit about the future, and I guess mega trends always lead into the future and what the crystal ball sort of moment. But actually bringing it back down to earth. Now you've got kids of your own who are sort of getting to the stage of starting careers and thinking about what their sort of adult futures could look like. What would be your greatest hope and greatest fear for them?
Oh, that is a big question. So my greatest hope for the next generation is that they can help us through some of these really big challenges that we've got, that we still have a planet to live on. And I genuinely think that they have a different set of values to us coming through, and different perspectives. So I really hope that they embrace some climate sustainability and humanity. One of my fears, well, I'm going to combine sort of hopes and fears a little bit. I think we just need to be careful with our children that they haven't lost their ability to interact, to engage, to collaborate. I think these things are wonderful, but I was on the train the day before yesterday. And, when you're on a train before, you might actually have a chat with somebody or talk to somebody. Everybody is just sitting looking at these things, or they're plugged in. And that's something that sort of worries me in terms of socialization. But there's obviously so many amazing things about phones and technology, etc. But I think really making sure that that social side for the next generation is absolutely there. So as a mother, 22-year-old and a 20-year-old, my son who's just started work, he's gone into an AI company, actually, fraud in the banking industry. I think there'll be so many new jobs that we haven't even thought of or heard of. He's doing stuff which honestly I'm learning so much from him. It's incredible. And kind of akin to that is the fear that our children will be saddled with so much debt, and it won't be as happy a time as we've had going through our lives. I think we're saddling them with a lot through the pandemic, through a lot of debt. So anyway, so there's some sort of bigger philosophical thoughts as I suppose, as a mother.
Yeah, I agree, concur with a lot of that, Michelle. My kids 20 and 16, and feels like there's quite a big burden on them. So they're going to need some support, and we thank you for being part of the Mentoring Gen Z scheme, which is helping people into the industry. Now, what role has mentoring played for you? You mentioned Seamus McBride as having a pivotal influence on you, but what role has mentoring played for you in your career?
Oh, mentoring's been amazing from two sides, actually. So I suppose I didn't realise somebody like Seamus was sort of a mentor to me at the time. I mean, I was very young, and he was living out in Brussels, and he and his family kind of took me under their wing a little bit, for which I'm eternally grateful. But from a business point of view as well, he was one of those leaders. He actually went on to be CEO of Bacardi, an amazingly human and genuine man. I think another person who's been a great mentor to me is Niall Fitzgerald. So Niall was CEO of Unilever, but then he became chairman of brand learning, which was just like phenomenal. So Mari, who was one of the founders and partners, she'd known him from her Unilever days, and he then became our chairman. And in fact, he's no longer our chairman, but actually he's still been a great support to me. So I think choosing those people who can help you, guide you, be there for you when you need it, but also you're there for them, right? And I think mentoring is often a two-way thing. I've also been incredibly lucky because I am part of the Marketing Academy mentoring program, and have been since day one. With the wonderful, wonderful Sherilyn Shackle, who I know has been on your program before, and I'm sure she had many pearls of wisdom. But I've had 5 or 6 people every year for the past 12 or 13 years now, and that's been such a privilege because I have learned so much from those people, and I can when you start talking about squiggly, I can name. So Sarah and spent a lot of time with Sarah, and she was a mentee right at the beginning. So I've built some really fantastic relationships with different people, learned as much, and hopefully given a little bit back to them. And it's something that's really important to me, actually. And as I go beyond work one day, I hope that I can still continue to help mentor, because I think it's just the least I can do for an industry that's supported me for the last 30 years. So, and I love it. I love people as well. So it's really important.
It really rings true, as I said in the intro. Just the massive heart that you have and the time that you give up for people is actually really inspiring, Michelle. It really is. And I think related to that, I just want to kind of pick at, because there's I guess an underlying stroke around mentoring, and that sort of leads into networking a little bit. And clearly for all of us, the role of networking has been a very fundamental way that we've been able to achieve some level of success. And I would just like to get your take on, what would you say to people who are kind of getting into the industry, looking to foster their networks? What would be some of the tips that you would say to them?
Such a great question. So I think your network is so important. And this isn't about creating a network for a network's sake, and kind of thinking, oh, who can I have in my network? Who's really important and who will look good? This is about genuinely having people in your network who you kind of go on a journey with, right? So if I look back on my network, I've kind of got a network from my Colgate days, from my Pepsi days, from my brand learning days, now into Accenture. But they all play a different role in my life, and I reach out to different people at different times, and they reach out to me at different times. And it's just, for me, it's a very, very valuable asset that when I was younger, I didn't realize I was doing it, right? I'm from a big Irish family. We talk to anybody. My dad will talk to everybody in the street. And I've kind of grown up like that. So I found it kind of easy to talk to people and get to know people, but you have to invest in it, right? So I was out for dinner the other evening there's a wonderful group of 4 of us when we were at Pepsi together. We weren't that close when we were actually at Pepsi, but actually at Walker's. But we have invested the time and really enjoyed being together. And we have dinner probably 3 times a year. And it's just, you kind of invest the time and the energy, and it's an amazing friendship that we have now. So I think just invest the time in the network. Don't always expect something back. Give generously, and have gratitude within that network. So if anyone ever reaches out to me, I will always try and help them however I can. That's just what you do.
So, Michelle, I mean, great advice to have gratitude. I think so often we sort of forget what's going good in our lives. Now, you've led big teams, companies, you've got a lot of leadership experience. How do you see yourself as a leader? What are the characteristics of you as a leader?
I think you're better off asking Nina, actually.
Well, we already have.
You have asked Nina, haven't you? So, look, I think my leadership has probably evolved as I've kind of grown up. I think there's the doing and the being of being a leader, right? So there's the doing, which is the expertise and making sure that you're sort of current in your thinking and your points of view. And then there's the being of being a leader, and that's who you are, how you turn up, how you engage with people, and sort of the influence that you have. And so I suppose for me, then the doing, I've been in and out of marketing, deep doing through my career, because, for example, I was COO at Brand Learning for a while, so it's much more about the operations of the business rather than necessarily out with clients. I'm now back out with clients a lot in terms of Accenture, but keeping up to speed with sort of marketing. But on the doing side, then on the being side, it's really understanding kind of how you want to be. And I want to be a people person. I want to be there for people. I want to be compassionate. I want to be understanding. I also want to be authentic and true, because I think that's kind of deep within my own value set. Values are really important, and I've spoken quite a few times on the importance of your values, being very transparent about what those are as well, because people get to know you really, really fast. So I think being really open, honest, transparent with people is super important as a leader on that being side. So that's what I try to do. So yeah, I think pretty straightforward, pretty simple for me, but that's kind of things I live by. And Steve, I worked with Steve Radcliffe. So I just worked with Steve Radcliffe when I ran the Marketing Leaders Program with Marketing Society for 5 years. And he had a very simple model, which was future, engage, deliver. So have a really clear view of the future. What's that North Star you're going for? Make sure you've got an amazing, engaging team that are kind of on that journey with you, that are involved, and that you deliver with excellence. So strategy is nothing without great delivery. So some really simple models in my head: doing, being, future, engage, deliver.
You know, Michelle, you say that it seems simple, almost intuitive to you, that you put values at the front, and you mentioned some fantastic ones that you hold really dear to you. But let me just tell you that leaders that I've experienced in the past have not had that sort of same sense of humanity and empathy. And in fact, having sort of grown up in financial services, often I came across leaders who were probably the antithesis of it. And actually, it left me with a sense that ruthlessness was the only way to lead. And actually, as we move forward now, I'm sort of starting to get a sense of it being almost a 360. In fact, that sort of old school mentality of, absolute sharpness and ruthlessness feels like it doesn't lead to much productivity or long-term relationships moving forward. So I just, perhaps wanted to kind of overlay that into it, that maybe what's intuitive to you certainly wasn't my experience of growing up. And And certainly, that person as a leader really then shaped my direction of my career, not wanting to sit in some of those corporates that I was in, because actually I just didn't want to be in that environment. So, leaders really do shape the context for the people coming up after them. And it's just so important to get right. So I really applaud you for that. Honestly, it's not common practice, and it's not intuitive for most. It may be intuitive for you. I know we're running and we're clocking out of time here. So let me end with one final question. We get lots of people who are sort of soul searching, thinking about directions and where they want to go from here at this moment in time. The pandemic's not made it any easier. So what would you say are some of the key things that you've learned along the way that you maybe could impart to somebody going through a bit of a pivot moment right now?
Okay, it's a great question. So I think be really honest with yourself about what you're passionate about and what makes you be brilliant, right? Just take the time to think, when are you at your happiest? And actually, when are you at your least happy, right? And try and pivot towards kind of going for things that make you really happy. I think that's one thing. I think the second thing is control. So I was slightly out of control at one stage in my career. I was working 24/7, etc. My husband and my mother organised our wedding, and I just about turned up to it. Taking control, and actually I did that when I went to brand learning. I absolutely took control and was very clear about what I would and wouldn't do. So taking control. And network. I mean, I think you've used a lot of the key themes. I would, well, especially when I mentor, the network and talk to people, find out kind of which businesses sound really interesting, which people sound interesting, who do you want to work with, work for, what culture will you thrive in? Because honestly, I suppose my message is, how do you get into an environment that you can be at your best, right? Not avoid losing, but be at your best. And that is where you will thrive and you will grow, and the business you're in will also benefit to the maximum extent.
What an amazing stepping out point. What a lovely note to end on. Michelle, you've given us so many tips, and it's been wonderful to hear your journey. I'm just going to try and play back some of the things I've heard to put a bow on it, if you like. We started about talking about working hard and playing hard and having fun, loving the work you do, but also looking after yourself, which I think was a great foundation for a sort of a centeredness, a very reflective approach to things. We then talked a bit about risk taking, halving your salary, moving abroad, finding yourself, traveling around. And I love the quote, your life is lived forward and understood backwards as well. Marketing never more needed. We need to be art and science, the Da Vinci marketer, or maybe the Da Vinci team. I think good distinction. We need to declutter. Michelle, it's been lovely. I mean, it's really easy to spend time with you, just to listen to your wisdom and thoughts. I'm going to end with, but I thought the distinction between leaders as being and doing is a really, really important one. And if I link a couple of things, enjoy the experience of being a leader rather than enjoy the experience of doing leadership. It's a subtle but important point. But anyway, it's been lovely to have you on, Michelle. I'll hand back to Richie for his thoughts as well.
Mark, you certainly captured some of the key themes that I was going to capture on. But I mean, the thing that really strikes me, Michelle, is the fact that you're just such a unique individual. And I think what you bring is actually you kind of are infectious in the nature and culture that you engender, both within your teams and within the clients that you work with. So I can imagine that actually when people work with you, it really does become the best place and environment where they can shine. And I think that's something that you hold very close to your heart to make sure that happens. And I think that comes through in spades. So look, I just want to say a massive thank you. Honestly, it's just been such a pleasure to listen to the story and to hear some of those key insights from you. So thank you very much for your time and energy this morning.
Well, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure talking to you both and giving me the opportunity to reflect, actually, because look, life is fast paced. So it's been lovely talking to you. So thank you.
Our pleasure, Michelle. Thank you again. Just a trail for next week, we've got Richard Robinson, who's Managing Director of Exium and Oyster Catchers. And Richard was recently voted one of the 10 most influential leaders in digital and tech. So tune in next week for his perspectives. But for now, thank you.